Hello VC, what's going on? It's me, Will, and I'm back with a new video, my first video of 2022, and this one's going to be a review of an audiobook that I just picked up not too long ago. It's the newest audiobook from Billie Armstrong, lead singer of Green Day, of course, and this one's called Welcome to My Panic, and it's part of the Words Plus Music series on Audible. So if you have an Audible account, you should be able to listen to this one for free. I don't have an account with them, so I ended up buying the actual physical copy of this audiobook from Amazon. And it's part of it was released as an Audible original release. So as far as I can tell, you can only listen to this on Audible or by buying the physical copy on Amazon. I did buy the physical copy of this one also because I wanted to have it as part of my Green Day collection. But in case you're curious about buying the actual CD of this, don't expect too much as far as the packaging of this audiobook, because this is obviously one of those made-to-order kind of physical copies or CDs. First of all, it's an MP3 audio CD, so it's not like a regular CD or audio CD. You can only play this ones on either on computers or modern stereos, like in your car stereos. You should be able to listen to this, but you won't be able to listen to this one on let's say on like a regular CD stereo. Just keep that in mind. And as far as the packaging, it's very bare bones. It's just kind of like the regular boxes for Blu-rays with a printed sleeve or cover. And the CD itself, it doesn't come in with any inserts or anything. Very bare bones. And the CD itself is obviously very made on demand. It's actually a CDR. It's not even a regular CD, as you can see from the back with the blue haze on the CD. So like I said, this is part of the Words Plus Music series on Audible. So like the title indicates, this is an audiobook with words and with music, which is really cool because as you listen through the audiobook, which is of course spoken or narrated by Billie Armstrong, in between chapters, they will have some music. So they will have Green Day music. And the cool thing about this one, the very cool thing about this one is that it's, of course, older songs from Green Day, but they are, as far as I can tell, unreleased versions of those songs or brand new versions of older songs. Most of them are acoustic versions of them. It seems like they were recorded by Billie Joe by himself in his studio. But I could be wrong about that. He may have some help in his studio, I don't know. But it sounds excellent. The songs, just the songs on this audiobook are great. They sound very fresh. I don't know, they just sound like he's giving some of the songs kind of like a new sound on some of his older songs, which I thought it was very interesting. And as far as I can tell, the only way to listen to those songs are by listening to this audiobook, by getting an Audible subscription or buying a physical copy of this one. And there are 8 songs included in this audiobook throughout the entire length of the book. The songs are Revolution Radio, 2,000 Light Years Away, Basket Case, Good Riddance, American Idiot, Wake Me Up When September Ends, Know Your Enemy, and Graffitia. So it runs across the entire catalog of the Green Day history. Another thing about the audiobook is that I wouldn't really call it an audiobook, even though it says right there, audiobook. I think mainly because of the length of it. It's only an hour and a half long, so I think it may be too short to be considered an actual audio book, but I would just call it like a long podcast episode. That's, to me, sounds like a better definition of the actual release. So now speaking about the words part of the words plus music part of the audiobook, I would say that if Billie Joe Armstrong was to release a full book or like an autobiography book of his entire life, this would be the perfect outline of that book. Especially considering the length of this audiobook. It's only, like I said, it's very short. It's an hour and a half long. It doesn't really have that much time to cover all the details about his life. So it really covers mainly the main highlights of his personal life and his career as a musician. So it has kind of like the main topics from his early life, growing up in the Bay Area, starting the band, growing up in the punk scene over there, and then all the way to being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's a very long history that he already has with his band and his professional career. And with only an hour and a half, you only have that much time to cover the main items or the main topics of his entire history, his entire life. So the audiobook starts from the very beginning, growing up in the Bay Area. So it covers a lot about his personal life, his family history, life with his parents, with his brothers and sisters. Talks a lot about his dad, which is something that I didn't know that much about his life, and then about forming the band with Mike Dirnt and going through several different drummers and different band names as well, which is another thing that I didn't know about Green Day, especially the fact that they started under the name of True Ant. I think that's the name that he mentions in the audiobook. I had no idea about that. I've always thought that their first band name was Sweet Children, but I guess I was wrong about that. So I learned a lot about the early Green Day history from this audiobook. And then it moves on into the whole process about the punk scene in Gilman Street in the Bay Area. Talks a lot about the punk ethics and the whole entire process, his thought process about moving into or signing into a major label, which was a very, very big deal back in the day, especially if you were part of that punk community, which was very against the punk ethics to move on into one of the major labels. But it covers a lot about what he thought, what was going on in his head when they did decide to jump into a major label, which I thought was very, very interesting. In the book, he also talks a lot about his history with panic attacks, which is something that I didn't know much about Billie Joe. But apparently he did suffer from experiencing a lot of panic attacks throughout early in his life. And apparently the lyrics for Basket Case were written about his panic attacks, and also under a lot of influences of drugs as well. But he does tell a lot of the stories of the process of writing some of his most famous songs, like Basket Case and other ones. And he also tells stories from his early career, like playing in the infamous show at Woodstock in 1994. And yeah, lots of really cool stories in this audiobook that I think any Green Day fan should listen to at least once. The whole tone of the audiobook is non-scripted. So it's not that he's just reading through a big page full of words that he previously wrote. It is very conversational, even though there's nobody that he's talking to, just to the microphone. But he's obviously not reading from a script. It seems very improvisational at some point, where he seems to be adding things on the spot, which I think it was a really cool thing, because it just seems more natural instead of just reading through a book. So the audiobook does cover a long period of time, from the beginnings of the band back in the late 80s all the way till just a few years ago when they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But it does tend to focus more on the early history of the band. However, there are some really cool stories about the later albums that they recorded, from Nimrod all the way till I think the trilogy, which I thought that were really interesting. For example, he does talk about when he was recording Nimrod, and they were getting ready to tour for that album. And he struggled a lot with the fact that he was becoming a leading front man in a big band, and the fact that he was going to have to entertain thousands of people when he went out there and performed live in a rock show. Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. And he also talks a lot about his panic attacks, like I mentioned before, and the whole concept of mental health, which I think is a very relevant topic nowadays. And also, what I thought it was really interesting is when he talks about and where he remembers the process of writing and recording 21st Century Breakdown, the follow-up album to the very successful American Idiot. And he remembers it being very unfun, which is something that I wasn't really expecting from him, because he seems to be the kind of guy that really enjoys making music and recording music. But he does remember recording that album as being not that fun, mainly because of the large expectations that they had after recording American Idiot, and because the music from 21st Century Breakdown was just so complicated and difficult to record. Another thing that I found that was very interesting about his stories. And finally, the whole concept of the trilogy that came out back in, I think, in 2012 or 2013. It was quite interesting to learn his whole thoughts on the trilogy, Uno, Dos, Tres. And at some point in the audiobook, he does call the trilogy absurd, which I thought it was very on point. But either way, those are my thoughts about the audiobook from Billie Joe Armstrong. I really hope that at some point he releases or he comes out with a full book with more details about the story of the band, more stories about how he came up with some of the lyrics of some of his songs. But for now, this is what we'll get for now. I think it was a really cool idea. And the fact that you also get some new versions of old songs in the audiobook, it made to a very entertaining listen. If you get a chance, I highly recommend that you check this one out. Again, this one's called Welcome to My Panic by Billie Joe Armstrong. It's available on Audible, and you can also pick it up on Amazon. I'll put a link here in the description in case you want to check it out. But yeah, very cool to pick it up. I think it's for anyone out there, even if you're a Green Day fan or not. It's still a very cool listen. Yeah, that's all for me for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.